This is the event discussion for the first week of the year, 1/8 to 1/12. Only 3 events this week, partly because I came late from my vacation, and also 2 events didn't happen that were supposed to happen that I was going to attend. So anyway, 3 events. One is I'm going to skip the names because I'm just not I don't have my laptop handy right now, and I'm going to put it in the description. So I'm just going to describe the events and the content. So one event was about Amazon Nitro, which is the presentation of the person that leads that particular business segment of Amazon. He's a distinguished engineer at Amazon in charge of Nitro. He co-developed it. And this presentation focused on sort of operational engineering and business practices within the AWS business. Then there was a physics seminar where the person was introducing ideas and research on materials that can work as quantum anomalous Hall effect insulators. What that means in general is, look, you have a Hall effect, and then you have a quantum anomalous Hall effect. Those are certain effects that happen with topological insulators, where you have a particular electron flow at the edge of the material. That electron flow can have quantized properties, and that can be used for various ideas. For example, spintronics, quantum computing, or low power technology. So I'm going to discuss this in more detail. And the third presentation is a lady from Berkeley. Her name is Hannah Stuart. I remember that one. And she spoke about haptic sensing for robots, for example, suction, or basically or underwater robots using fluid dynamics to analyze where they are and what they can do. So haptic sensing is a sensor, the same way humans have a touch as a sense. Our skin is actually really good at that. The same way we might be able to use that for robots. So this was a presentation that is trying to take advantage of ambient environments such as pressure, air, even sound, frequencies of air, things along those lines, to take advantage of those things and use it for robots. This is not even on podcast. It's January 12, 2024. This is the second presentation today. Unfortunately, we've dropped a little bit more, so we finished the day down 3.3%. For the year, we are now down 10%. The market is roughly flat. Just before I go into the conversation, as I said in the first part, I think we're hitting some road bumps with Tesla that are, on the one hand, a little bit difficult for us. On the other hand, we have better opportunities, in particular Microsoft and Synopsys, to take advantage of generative AI. So we're debating whether we should reduce our Tesla position and diversify. This has implications for expected returns. It also has implications for taxes. So we can't just lightly take that decision, but this is something we're discussing right now. And since this this podcast series is about how it feels like to run a hedge fund, I think it's important to discuss this. But now let's get to the events discussion. So first event, this is a gentleman from AWS. He talks about Nitro, maybe a little background about him. Very interesting person. He was working for Marvell. He's an engineer. He then built his own company that has been sort of in the chip/software infrastructure development space. According to his comments, he saw sort of in the early 2010s the focus on mobile compute and sort of lack of focus on data infrastructure and cloud computing, data infrastructure, things along those lines. So he invested in a chip/software infrastructure company that was sort of the predecessor of what became Amazon Nitro and Amazon Graviton. And I would like to summarize this as, look, what is the problem that Amazon or AWS has to solve, or Amazon as a whole company, right? The problem that Amazon has to solve as a company is a massive influx of transactions that have to be managed in an optimal way, whether it's the online trading business, the online e-commerce business, or AWS. It's very similar in a sense. It's a lot of transactions, so you have to allocate resources to support these transactions. Now, with AWS in specifically, the transactions are, requests for compute and storage, and Nitro is a platform that helps manage that. So whether it's compute resources in terms of CPU, whether it's storage, memory, networking infrastructure, whether it's security requests or security needs when requests happen, all of these things have to be managed in an optimal way. And optimal means, of course, as constraint in terms of, for example, cost, in terms of time. I spoke with a gentleman a couple of weeks ago who is in at the business school, who deals with organizational development, and he told me that he works with AWS on allocating data, spreading it around the world. So data is available for training, for example. So if you're JP Morgan and you want to have a just-in-time training facility for your generative AI chatbot, let's say, you want to make sure that the data that you need to train or fine-tune that bot is accurate, is timely, and available around the globe wherever it's needed at whatever time. Those types of problems are operations research problems, but they're also engineering problems in a sense. Okay, look, how much data do we allocate? How much resources do we allocate to move the data at what point in time? And what are the quantities and what are the latencies? So those are the kinds of things that this particular gentleman discussed. Maybe sort of my personal comments. I feel Amazon is a sort of low-cost infrastructure company, which has been great for them. But I feel like they're kind of losing the ball a bit in terms of developing maybe new technologies, staying on top of, for example, software developers, which are customers of AWS. And that's something that Microsoft has a better handle of. So this is something that, just as a side note, I noticed, I think, in this particular presentation, one thing came across is a kind of a self-assurance that, in my opinion, is a little bit dangerous. There's a risk of disruption here that is not negligible. And Amazon better be managing this carefully. Otherwise, you could have a situation where Amazon gets Amazoned, as the saying goes. Nevertheless, very interesting. Also, a great example of a seminar that is cross-functional. It helps undergrad students understand, what engineering problems are out there in the real world, what one should be working on, and also maybe what kind of companies one should be building. The next event, that's part of the Applied Physics Colloquium series. Now, whenever it comes to physics, I think a lot of nomenclature that requires explanation. I think my audience is mostly people that care about either how to run a hedge fund or to have interest in some of the underlying technologies that we're invested in particular AI and compute infrastructure. So when it comes to physics, there's always this like, okay, why is this relevant for the Not Even Wrong podcast? And the answer is it's relevant because material science, condensed matter physics are very closely related to the energy problem that we're trying to solve, the energy problem that we're trying to solve, which is decarbonizing the energy infrastructure as of Tesla's Battery Day 2 years ago. So condensed matter physics matters. It's interesting. We also are working on quantum computing. And this particular presentation had touched all of these subjects. In particular, what we're talking about here is this gentleman from Fudan University in Shanghai presented research on a material that could exhibit quantum anomalous Hall effect, which is a topological insulator that has intrinsic magnetism, and therefore can be used as an effective topological insulator with a quantum anomalous Hall effect. What that means is, in plain English, is that imagine you have a material that in the bulk, in the middle, acts as an insulator, but on the edges, has certain electron flows that are directional and also have certain spin characteristics that can be manipulated with by applying, let's say, magnetic forces onto this material. And that starts looking like a potential substrate for computation and storage. And this is the key. This is why this is so interesting for us. It can also be used for low power technologies. So like a lot of things in condensed matter physics, we're looking at very basic rudimentary research. So this is not something that I think Jensen Huang should be thinking about, or Intel or AMD or anybody like that, or Tesla. But it's interesting to see where research is going and how research is, or how science and research and technology are dealing with these effects that could potentially be interesting and be exploited. Now, the last presentation I want to talk about is Hannah Stuart from Berkeley. She spoke about haptic sensing for robots, and I thought it was interesting. Haptic sensing is, in my opinion, an underrated part of robotics and sensing. And the reason it's underrated is, I think, because vision has been so successful. And I think Hannah mentioned vision many times. If you have vision, well, why do you need haptics? Well, first, I mean, there are certainly opportunities for haptics, even if vision is great, or you want to add LiDAR and things along those lines, you can still use haptics. For example, here's one great example, which is you actually mentioned, which is in the tire business. You could have haptic sensing on tires that helps cars understand what kind of surface they're driving on. And then my question to her was, well, why not take this to the next level and use haptic sensing for tires in Formula One racing to optimize the driving and maybe reduce the need for tire changes? So this could be a real executable application for haptic sensing in a race environment where a lot of money is being thrown at solutions. Now, Hannah was not talking about these types of things. She was talking about suction in particular, which is very interesting for, let's say, warehouse robotics. Why deal with fingers and dexterity when you might just be able to suck stuff, okay? Or let's say she used examples of robots that work in recycling plants where they can, divert things. Like, say you have a conveyor belt and you have stuff on the garbage, and the robot picks stuff and puts it in certain bins. Now, on that particular use case, you could imagine vision identifying an object, but suction finding the right place to suck the thing, and you might be able to do that with vision, in cooperation with vision, or, and this is what Hannah is working on, actually without vision. So just use sensing. So imagine a blind person that has a very good sense of sensing, of touch, and the same could be applied to a robot. So she spoke about this. Just sort of as a tangent, Hannah is a mechanical engineer from Stanford. So this is a nice example also of a cooperation, again, between engineers, mechanical engineer, and she was actually actively looking for CS people that can help her with algorithms that can use the mechanical data that she gathers and do something with it. I could think of ideas in reinforcement learning. I could think of ideas like I said in robot taxis, where haptic sensing could be used. Of course, it can also be used in the sort of humanoid robot space for various things, in particular for things like picking up things or navigation, like I said, in the car. You could use haptic sensing also as a cross-check for ground truth. So, for example, if a car is not sure whether the surface is icy that it's driving on, haptic sensing on the tires could help it understand better what kind of surface the car is driving on. So to summarize 3 events this week, one presenting AWS Nitro and the technology behind it and the business case and the operational issues that are behind it. Second, topological insulators and quantum anomalous Hall effects, certain materials that could exhibit those types of effects and be used for quantum computation, storage, and low power electronics. And third, haptic sensing and robotics, a new frontier that could be exploited for various use cases and performance enhancements. Thank you.